and this is Chromaa, and today I'm going to be chatting with Kyle T. Webster. Kyle is an illustrator, graphic designer, app maker. He makes Photoshop brushes that have become widely popular amongst digital artists, and today I'm just going to ask him some questions. He's been illustrating since 2003. He has done illustration work for big name companies. He is a professor for painting and drawing at the North Carolina School of the Arts. And yeah, so if you just want to say hello, feel free.
Yes, hi everybody. Thanks for being here, and thank you for hosting this, Caleb.
Yeah. So how did you start making Photoshop brushes?
In 2004, while I was working as a graphic designer, we had a poster job we had to do, and the client wanted it to be done as a oil painting. And we had 1 week, we didn't have the supplies, and it was just a very tight deadline, and I fashioned some brushes in Photoshop, what I believe at the time was, gosh, was that Photoshop 7 or something? I think it was before any of the CS stuff. Maybe it was CS1, I don't remember, 2004, whatever Photoshop version that was. That I made some brushes for myself out of desperation to complete that project. And the final print was very successful, and the client loved it, and it didn't matter that we didn't have a archived version of it. They just wanted the print to look good on the poster, and everyone was convinced that it was painted, so I was really excited and happy about what happened there. And so what I did was, at work, I would just keep fiddling with that. When I had time, I would make some brushes for myself to try and emulate other kinds of natural media. And of course, I was restricted by, at the time, the limits of Photoshop was not as powerful as it is now in terms of what you could do with brushes, but I still got some good results. And I just held on to those for years and kept building up my own little library. And then I started giving them to friends who asked for them because they noticed that some of my work would look a certain way, and they'd just be interested in trying it themselves. I decided to monetize it and see what would happen, because I'm always looking for ways to change my business model so that I'm not waiting for people to give me work. I want to make work and then try and sell it. And after the first couple of days of getting the brushes out there, the response was so great that I got very serious about it and made it into a legitimate part of my business. And I spend about 50% of my time every week illustrating for clients, and the other half I spend designing new brushes, modifying existing brushes, doing customer service, creating promotions, managing the shop. I'm working on a new website. So it's become a very large part of what I do now.
Cool. So out of your brush sets that you use, what do you think is your favorite brushes that you go to most often?
That's hard to answer, because what's happened is every time I make a new brush, that's kind of my favorite for a couple of hours. Then I go back on something else, and then I bounce around every day. And what I really like about that is it's forced me, forced is the wrong word, it's allowed me to work in different styles than I normally would. And as a result of that, I'm now able to get even more work for my illustration business, because I can show them, look, I can do this sort of watercolor look, or I can do this pen and ink look, or I can do these graphite drawings. And also for me as an artist, that's exciting because it keeps me fresh, it keeps me experimenting. So I wouldn't say I have a favorite one. I would say I'm most proud of probably some of the watercolor brushes in particular, just because that was a challenge to create that set, the real watercolor set. And some of the inking tools in the Mega Pack, I think, are pretty special. But yeah, I use my brushes exclusively for everything I do for my clients. It's great. It works hand in hand. It helps me. One business helps the other, and vice versa.
Do you have a certain way that you like to organize your Photoshop brushes?
Well, you know, I created them so I know where they all are, and I don't mind having a scrolling list of 300 or 400 tools. But you know, there are times when I want to narrow it down. What I'll do is just break out smaller tool presets that might be, like, for example, with editorial work where I do my more recognized style, which is just a sort of blend of American and Western European comics, I think, maybe with a nod to Hergé and people like that. It's just flat color with line art. When I do that, I have a set that just has, 2 or 3 inkers I really like, and some brushes for painting, and one eraser. That's just for that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't mind, having the big list. Other people, a lot of customers, I know that they make subsets for themselves. Some of them rename the brushes and pop them up to the top of the list. There's lots of ways to do it.
Cool. So whenever you first start an illustration piece, like what is the creative process behind the beginnings of it? Because I know that's like really important to get to the final product that you try to give to the people that commissioned it for you.
Depends on the deadline and on the kind of work. If it's a poster for a theater, I usually am given at least 3 weeks or longer to work on it, in which case I'll actually go through and read multiple synopses of the play, and I will then usually do a little tiny bit of writing, just write down some themes from the play, and then I'll get to doing thumbnail sketches for myself. Once I'm drawing, I'm doing everything nowadays just on the Cintiq. I don't even bother with paper anymore because I'll just draw myself some thumbnails on the Cintiq with one of my pencil tools. It feels the same as drawing on paper, so that's a nice step I can skip. And then after thumbnails, I'll develop some more finished sketches, send them along, sometimes with color if I feel that that's important to sell the idea. And after approval, then I'll just get to the final art with whatever style it is that I've mentioned to them will be used for the final. But for editorial work, I usually jump right into sketching as soon as I've got some summary of what the piece is about. Other times they won't even have that. They'll have just a sentence that kind of summarizes what it is. And yeah, I just jump right into sketching and see what happens. Usually I'm thinking while I'm sketching. I'm not even... There might be times if it's a particularly difficult article to interpret visually, then I'll, like if it's a complicated article about taxes or some business thing, then I'll maybe write down some notes about ideas for what that could be. I know a lot of artists write lists when they do sketches. They'll write columns and lists, and they'll mix and match ideas and words to come up with an idea. And I've tried that a few times, but usually for me, the solution is to just start drawing, and then things come out of the drawings. So I'll draw one thing, I'll draw another, I'll combine them, and then I have something that's worth showing. Or I'll not combine, sometimes I'll reduce it down to something simpler. But with editorial, it's quick. I have to get it done very fast. So that's a different kind of world. Advertising drags on and on. Usually there's a million changes, and the process changes every time. And then with my picture book, that was a very straightforward send a dummy, talk to the editors and art directors about how to change things around, modify the dummy, and then produce the final art.
Cool. So I guess my next question would be, what was the first big commission that you were commissioned to do that made you feel just like, holy cow, like I can't believe this person wants my artwork?
That would be, I did some apparel for Nike in, like the first or second year I started. And it was weird because the illustrations that I first presented were very much sort of the way I draw, which is why they called me, but then they did a 180 and they said what they wanted was more of these very pared down graphic solutions for what they wanted on the shirts. So I changed the way I worked and I did the work, but it was great. They got printed and sold in shops and everything, and that was exciting to see. It was a good learning lesson though, that you can get hired to do something and you have to be flexible and be able to quickly change direction and still make something that the client likes. So as excited as I was to work with Nike, it was also intimidating or a little scary to have them say they wanted one thing and have me change direction. But it all worked out in the end, and that was a great sort of moment for me that pushed me forward and gave me a lot of confidence, knowing that I could not stay locked into working one way, but just change the way I work for however it suits the assignment.
Cool. Do you have advice for people who may be watching now or later on how to get their name out on the internet to be able to have companies like this see their artwork?
Yeah, well, the first thing is that the work itself is really always going to be the thing that gets you the attention. So put out good work. I mean, share work that is unique and that really showcases what you do best and what you're interested in doing. If you don't want to draw cars, don't put out a portfolio of cars. And I would say take advantage of the communities that exist, like Behance, places where there are a lot of artists showing work. It might seem like maybe that's not the best thing because there's a lot of competition, but it's important because art directors do visit these places and they surf through and they see what they like. And if you do something that is noticed by the Behance editors, they can pop it up to the front page for a while or highlight it or feature it, and that can get you work, you know?
Yeah.
I would say keep an active presence going on Twitter, where there really is, I think, also a sense of community. It's nice. I think it's a supportive environment for artists. I feel like we all lift each other up, and you know, someone posts something that they've done, then I'll retweet it, and vice versa, and we help each other along there. That's nice. Of course, we only do this if we genuinely really like the work, not if just because someone retweets something I do, it doesn't mean I'm gonna turn around and pat them on the back if I don't like their work. It's still a system where you have to respect and admire what they're doing. But it is nice. I really like that community. I think the main thing is keep it very professional. I've noticed that a lot of young artists, when they start out, they write in their Twitter profiles, aspiring illustrator. And I think you should take the word aspiring out of there, unless you want people to always look at you as being somebody they can either potentially take advantage of with a low fee or just simply not hire because they assume you have no experience. If you have graduated and or not graduated, but if you've got a good, strong portfolio and you are looking actively for professional illustration work, then your profile should read illustrator. I think that's something that people need to be careful with. And then as far as things going viral and all this kind of stuff, again, it's a combination of luck, the quality of the work, timing. But the main thing is to keep pumping out really good work. I think of people like Jake Wyatt, who started posting his comic, his personal project on Tumblr, and he amassed a great following, not through any really intense marketing efforts, but simply because people saw the work and they shared it because it was fantastic. And as a result of that, I think he, more quickly than a lot of other people who are trying to make it, was rewarded with commissions from Marvel and other places, and built great relationships with a lot of people in the comics community, and he's a well-respected artist. I think the main reason that happened was because his work is fantastic, not because he's a social media expert. So it all comes down to the work, I think. But you do have to get it out there. You can do great work, and if it sits on your desk and you don't share it, then nothing's going to happen.
Cool. Not long ago, you retweeted me, and whenever you did that, I was just like, holy cow, like Kyle T. Webster just retweeted something that I drew. And then I started thinking, like, you are someone that I look up to in the illustration world and in a creative way. And then I started to think, like, who were people that you looked up to whenever you were first starting out, or who are people that you look up to now?
Well, first of all, I retweeted it because it was nice drawing. And I think that's what I like about Twitter and places like that, is it really is, they're supportive communities. If I see something I like, then I'll share it, and everyone, I think most people do that. And I you know, if somebody retweeted something that I did and then they created something and expected me to retweet it, I wouldn't unless I liked it. And I think that's one other thing to keep in mind, is that the artists, we respect and admire good work, and then we retweet it or share it or we talk about it because it's good, not because there's a handshake thing where it's like, or I'll pat your back, or scratch your back, you scratch my back. But so yeah, I think I just loved that drawing. It was really nice. That was just a great drawing. And I hope you do a lot of drawings like that. It's great. But anyway, I look up to so many artists. It's impossible to list them all, but I'll try and list a few. Well, I mean, the list just grows and grows until you have this overwhelming number of people who I just think are great for different reasons, and some of them are alive, some of them are dead. Probably the person I've admired the longest is Gary Kelly. He's an illustrator who's been around for ages, doing fantastic pastel and now oil painting work, and now also monotypes, and he really can do anything he likes. He's amazing. Let's see. I mean, there are so many people I admire in different kinds of in different facets of our industry. For example, in comics, you know, I love Mike Mignola, of course, just because he's such a great designer with his drawing choices, and then related to that, Duncan Fagredo does incredible drawings. Also worked on the Hellboy titles. Yeah, I could go on and on with all the Belgian comic artists I like, you know, Hergé and people like Franquin. Of course, everyone loves Mobius. Anki Bilal. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, people nowadays who are working, I think there's just too many to name. I just recently did an interview with American Illustration where I called out two people, Jillian Tamaki and John Klassen. I'm paying a lot of attention to what they're doing and admiring what they're doing with their work, because they're so fearless about just drawing the way they want to draw and telling the stories they want to tell, and doing it beautifully, and it's really something to behold. So there are lots of other people I really love, just the way they think, the way they draw. John Hendricks is one who I've always admired. Yeah, anyway, maybe those are the top three for the moment. But there's so many. Yeah. I'm always finding new heroes every day.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that you said are also people that I look up to and like follow heavily on other social media accounts. And it's really cool to see people like them being supported by people like you, and vice versa, whenever you like look up to all those people, because it kind of gives like hope to me and like friends I'm with at school, like just kind of a sense of like one day like maybe we'll be up there with these people, being able to like support one another. It's exciting to think about.
I know how you feel, because when I was starting out, I had this same sense of seeing like the people I was looking at who were all spending a lot of time together, and they were successful and doing great work, and they were friends. When I was starting out, those were the people who were maybe like John Cuneo and Tim O'Brien and people like that. They were a good 10, 15 years ahead of where I was with what they had accomplished. And the thing is, like, I now realize that there's really no, it's not like looking up at people or anything like that. It's just that it's a length of time thing. So you work and work and work for years, and if you actually do make it to the 10-year mark and then the 15-year mark as an illustrator, and you're still working and you're still busy, that's an accomplishment. I've realized now, because when I started out, there were a lot of people who were getting going as well, who unfortunately, sadly, they're not illustrating anymore. It's not sad if that's what they chose not to do, if they wish to do something else. But I know a lot of them did want to keep going, but it is not it's not the easiest industry. It's not a very easy business to be in. So yeah, I just admire people who are able to make a career of it, a real career. That's pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah. And then I guess just to end it, do you have any last advice for people that may be watching it now or maybe watching it later?
Well, yeah, I think, well, okay, I think there's this, speaking of business, I think you have to wear a lot of hats if you want to be successful as an illustrator. And you can draw really well, but then you have this business component that you need to pay attention to and nurture. And I would say that it would benefit a lot of people who are thinking about being an illustrator. It would benefit them to read some books about, some basic books about just how to run a business, and maybe read some books about marketing, and maybe even take a course if they could audit a course, a simple business 101 kind of thing, just so they can be thinking about it in those terms. Because it's one thing to, yeah, I think, everybody needs to pay attention to their craft, pay attention to how they are making images, and make sure they're making great images. And that's, of course, number one, but it's almost equally important to be able to conduct yourself in a professional manner, be able to communicate clearly with the people with whom you wish to work on assignments, and when you're introducing yourself, do it in a way that makes you seem like you're buttoned up and you've got your act together. Learn how to write contracts, especially. Don't get taken advantage of. Make sure that you protect yourself and you don't do spec work, and you look out for work for hire contracts, and make sure that you cover your bases and all that stuff. It's all business stuff. I spend so much time just emailing and signing things and having phone calls, and that I don't spend nearly as much time drawing as I'd like to. And that's just part of it. That's a reality, and people should be prepared for that, and kind of embrace that part of it. And if they really get into that part of it and get good at it, then I think they can make it and last for a while. You have to also be really, really flexible, because things change so fast. So you could be on top of the world doing work for the New Yorker, the New York Times, and Entertainment Weekly every week or something, 1 year, and then maybe it's kind of like a fashion industry. Maybe the art director leaves or changes the preference for what they think is good for the magazine or good for whatever, and all of a sudden people stop calling you. Then you have to shift over and find other people who want to work with you, or find a new market, or so that's something else to be aware of, is that you have to be on your feet, on your toes. I mean, paying attention to trends, paying attention to where things are going, and kind of keep your finger on the pulse. So yeah, it's busy, but it's busy in a good way, because ideally you have some control over where you're going with your work and with your business, and that's kind of exciting, and it's also very liberating. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. It's probably the same thing you've heard a million times, but
Yeah, I feel like professors and stuff, they push things like that to their students, and I hear things like that all the time, but it's really cool to hear it from someone who actually does it on a daily basis. And I don't know, it's just neat to be able to hear wisdom like that coming from you.
Well, thank you. Wisdom is a big word, but I think it's really just experience and just seeing how things really are after years and years of doing it. The same things keep coming up. I realize every year, I need to pay attention to this, I need to pay attention to that, and those things are constants and they never change. So those things, probably if I had to sum it up for two things, it would be: one, keep getting better at drawing, and that's a constant. I have to always be improving, always be getting better at what I'm doing. And then the second thing would be managing the business, paying attention to what it's doing, and noticing where are the commissions coming from, and how do I expand my reach, So that's pretty much it. I think maybe the third thing would be stay healthy. if you can. Don't sit at your computer all day, you know. Find ways to get up and go play tennis or something. And it's good for your brain too, so yeah.
Well, thank you for chatting with me for a little bit. I guess maybe tell them where they can find your work and your Photoshop brushes, and then.
Sure. Yeah, my illustration work and everything I do is at my website, kyletwebster.com. The site needs an update in terms of the portfolio of work. I was hoping to do that this week, but I got busy with projects. Next week I will do it. Maybe even this week I'll squeeze it in somehow. But then the Photoshop brushes are at kylebrush.com, and there are numerous sets to choose from. If you're just getting started, the best set to buy is the Mega Pack because it's got a nice collection of pretty much everything you need: inks, pencils, paints. It's a nice blend of things. And that's it. Yeah, I'm also on Twitter at Kyle T. Webster and Tumblr, Kyle T. Webster. Pretty consistent.
Okay. Well, thanks for chatting with me today.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Bye.
See you later.